Okay, we are recording. The video is on, and so is the audio. I'll just hold it in my hand here. Well, yeah, I think I got. Yeah, I'm okay. All right. So today is. I guess I have to put this in my pocket actually. Otherwise, I won't be able to clap. Okay, a few moments of quiet. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like most Jewish children born in America, my father had two sets of names. The one that appears on his birth certificate, Isaac Jonas, would eventually give way to Irving, but his Hebrew name would never change. Yitzchak Yonah ben Yehuda Yosef, Isaac Jonah, son of Judah Joseph. Yehuda Yosef, my grandfather, took the name Louis when he came to America in 1899. The only time I heard my grandfather referred to by his Hebrew name was in synagogue. When my father received an aliyah, the honor of reciting a blessing before a passage of the Torah is chanted aloud, the cantor would ask my father for his Hebrew name, which he would then announce to the entire congregation. Yitzchak Yonah ben Yehuda Yosef. It seems strange that my father's Hebrew name still rolls off my tongue, even though it was rarely spoken outside the confines of synagogue. Every year on the anniversary of my grandfather's death, Irving would leave for synagogue to recite a prayer in memory of Louis, who died at the age of 63 on the eve of Rosh Hashanah in 1944, 4 years before I was born. My father performed this annual ritual alone. When he returned home, the family would sit down for an elaborate dinner to celebrate the new year. Not once did my father ever take the occasion to talk about Louis, for whom he had just lit a memorial candle that would burn for the next 24 hours. In fact, my father almost never spoke to his children about his parents. There were no stories about their lives in Eastern Europe, no stories about their passage to America, no stories about their early struggles on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and no stories about Auburn in the borough of Queens, where they raised 3 children. Since my father had a close and loving relationship with his parents, I often wonder why he never shared with his own children personal details about our grandparents. I suppose it was because my father was a very practical man who saw little value in the past. He was focused firmly on the present or the future. There was little room in my father's heart for sentiment or nostalgia. Although I knew very little about my grandparents, a passing comment that my mother made one night at the dinner table made a lasting impression. She recalled that my father's parents had once lived in a small town called Atania. She didn't say where this was exactly, and she probably didn't know. In sober tones, she told her children never to forget the name of this place. As an adult, I was curious to learn more about Louis and Bertha Bader. What possessed 2 young people, barely out of their teens, to leave the country of their birth, their family and friends, for a place where they didn't even speak the language? I would later find out that they brought with them no savings to fall back on while they struggled to gain a foothold in America. Their occupations, tailor and cigarette maker, were not promising avenues to the comforts of a middle-class life. One old photograph that hung in the living room for many years pictured Louis and Bertha around the time of their marriage, looking straight into the camera. My grandfather sported a handlebar mustache that made him look much older than his 24 years. My grandmother was wearing a black dress with a high Victorian collar. Their serious pose was typical of portrait photography at the turn of the century, but I think it also reflects their awareness of the daunting challenges they faced, along with millions of other young immigrants eager to get ahead in America. In another photograph from around 1920, my grandparents were standing beside my father, who was perched on a tree between them. Irving and Bertha both showed the hint of a smile as Louis looked on sternly. All three were very well dressed in their overcoats and hats. Not surprising, since by this time my grandfather was manufacturing women's coats for fashionable department stores. My search to learn more about Louis and Bertha began in the late 1990s. This was before the internet became popular and genealogical research required visiting archives in person. So I went to the New York Public Library on Fifth Avenue and to a branch of the National Archives on Varick Street in Lower Manhattan in search of some basic facts. Where did my grandparents come from? When did they arrive in America? Where did they live when they got here? How did they make a living? Did their parents or siblings also make the journey? Did they ever become citizens? Eventually, I discovered the first set of facts in an image from the 1920 federal census. Louis and Bertha Bader, then in their late 30s, were living at 972nd Street in Auburn Village, Queens. Their daughter, Pearl, age 13, son Nathan, age 12, and son Isidore, as my father was then known, age 4. Further to the right, it stated that both of my grandparents were from Austria and that my grandfather was a manufacturer of cloaks and suits. This marked the beginning of my fascination with genealogy, which has now lasted nearly 20 years. Still mistakes.
No, it's very hard to get it right. You said tree, but you didn't say
That's
tree
perched.
branch.
Yeah, right, a perch, yeah, right.
But you really should be saying tree stump, because you don't really sit on a tree branch. It was a stump of a tree.
It was a branch there, it was actually.
A branch is usually something
It was horizontal.
It was horizontal. I'm sure it was horizontal.
Look at it on the wall.
I thought it was a stump.
Come look at it on the wall here and tell me what you think. See? That's the horizontal branch there he's sitting on.
A branch? You get like a fence.
Whatever. Let's see what this looks like. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, this is still recording.
Oh, so you didn't stop it?